I was raised with just a sense of morality. I knew what was right, I knew what was wrong. I had parents that instilled those things in me. And I mean, the word does say that we're all without excuse. We all have a knowledge of God. We have a sense of what's right and what's wrong. And so I knew God, I knew the story of Jesus, but it was sort of in this cartoony sort of a way, the way that you teach or taught Bible stories as a kid. And the reality wasn't there, but the knowledge was. All of high school was just marked with lots of just sin and doing the wrong thing, drinking, just doing all those peer pressure situations, being promiscuous at a young age, and having it caused so much damage in those earlier years. It was really when the first divergence kind of came from that path of being that church-going child to then this rebellious adolescence, and it was sort of, that's where that fork kind of was created. I was taken advantage of in a lot of different ways. It made me feel so bad about myself, and it started to create this idea that the only way to be loved or accepted or to be made to feel attractive was with my body or with the things that I would do, to go to parties and drink and be cool and be liked. And that whole idea of wanting to be accepted and wanting to be attractive to other people, just friends and guys and all this stuff, it started then. And, in hindsight, we all are looking to be accepted, to feel loved, and without Christ, we just look for it in all these different places, and it's going to look different for everyone. But for me, it was, in partying and in substance abuse and in unhealthy relationships. I went to college, I started, bartending and working in a restaurant and working in a bar. That's just such a nocturnal lifestyle to begin with. There's so many people that I associated with that, you just worked all night and then you went out and drank your tips away, and then you came back the next day and did it all over again. And it caused me to then withdraw before getting my bachelor's, and I just dove headfirst into this lifestyle, much to the grief of my mother and my parents. I ended up in a 2.5-year relationship that I had with someone who was very heavily addicted to drugs, and so I just cleaved to that, and he had made me feel, accepted in all of the worldly ways, and I wouldn't say no to anything. I was just a yes person because, again, it was just all about pleasing man and pleasing other people and doing anything to feel like I was making someone else happy and that they loved me for it. And so I became really highly addicted to painkillers. There was a lot of drug use, a lot of all these things were so destructive, so everything seemed hopeless, going through all of that. I felt like I had, we got engaged, and I felt like I was kind of past the point of any return. I'd lost control over my life. I didn't recognize my life. I didn't know how I got there. And anyone that's dealt with any sort of addiction, it's really scary. It controls your whole life. And the Lord showed so much grace. He would give me these little moments, these little windows of clarity, of where I'd look around at my life and I'd say, how did I get here? And I'd have a sense He was there, and that there was something from the outside of me kind of looking in and shining the spotlight on me, and I'd crawl back into the shadows and not really want to have that light shining on me, but there was clarity, and there was a knowing that this is just bad. But then one day, life was so chaotic. I had finally gotten sober, for at least a lot of these major addictions had been dealt with, again, by the grace of God. It was not in my own strength. In hindsight, I know that completely now, but the Lord had brought a very good friend of mine from my childhood. She came back into my life and just looked at me and just said straight to my face, she's like, "What the heck are you doing?" And I had no answer for her. And so we got to talking more, and just the way that the Lord used this person, I just started to kind of wake up. And I remember being in this apartment, and all of a sudden the sun just started shining through the window, and I just started thinking, I need to end this relationship. This is it. Like, this is over. I can't do this anymore, and I did. I told him, and it was just a grace of God that I could move on from there. But I still was empty. I was still unfulfilled. There was still all of those old things, and that desire to seek fulfillment in all of these unhealthy ways. And my mom, this whole time being a church-going woman, she just was always asking me to go to church. And I went to this one church my mom was attending for a while, and there was a gentleman there that I'm now married to, but he was there, and I thought, oh, there's this really cute guy at the church, maybe I'll keep going now. And he also saw this young lady walk into church, and so he thought, well, look, there's someone my age, and I guess he thought I was attractive, and so he asked me to go to lunch. And so we went, and it was the worst possible. It was the worst lunch ever. I had the worst mouth. I cursed like an absolute sailor. It's just so disgusting, the things that would come out of my mouth. Every other word was the F word. I smoked like a chimney. I was just this, I had no identity. I thought I was so cool. Like, all I talked about the whole time was how I was going to backpack through Europe and be this world traveler, and I was so hip, and it was repulsive to him, and he knew the Lord, and so he also was going through his own stuff, and so he knew that this ship was sinking from the very beginning, so he just dropped me off at the train, and we didn't exchange numbers or anything, and a whole year went by until we came to meet again. Later that year, a lot of humbling, a lot of dead ends were walked down that year, and I went to church with my mother again. For some reason that day was just different, and they, asked the congregation that day, like, if you want to give your life to Christ, pray with us, and we worshiped, and I wanted it, and I said it, and again, it was sort of that last-ditch effort of, like, I don't know what's going to fix me, but this sounds like it could, and I just want it, I need fixing. So I said it, and nothing happened, nothing grandiose, I went home, my mom dropped me off, and I just remember walking into my apartment. I just lived by myself in this little studio, and I just remember, for some reason, I wanted to read the Bible. I knew I had a Bible somewhere. It was this little tiny pocket Bible, and I don't even know what scripture I turned to. All of a sudden, I broke into hysterical tears, just so sad, and again, just hopeless, just feel like all of the tears, all of the remorse, all of the guilt, all of the destruction that had happened up until that point, like every emotion that I could ever feel about it just came pouring out, and I couldn't stop crying. And then I just literally was like, I'm some type of crazy person. Like, this is ridiculous. I'm like, maybe I just need to eat something. And I just went into the kitchen and I started trying to make myself something to eat. And then in the preaching earlier that morning, it was something along the lines of, that the joy of the Lord, just comes like a flood sometimes. And so as I'm eating, all of a sudden, I just started choking on my food. I just realized, like, I was filled with so much joy. The entire room just was filled with the presence of the Lord, what I know now undoubtedly to be the Holy Spirit. God came in like a flood, and there was, from this hysterical, sorrowful mourning, tears of utter sadness and hopelessness, to hysterically laughing, so happy that I'm choking on my food, to where I literally said out loud, I'm like, you didn't even wait for me to finish chewing. Like, I am choking on my food with just exuberance. I can't describe the feeling of, all I knew was that it was just that summing up of, I was lost, and then I was found, and God is real. And I got on the phone, and I took my pack of cigarettes, and I went out on my fire escape, and I called my mother, and I said, Jesus is real, and I really love him. It was truly earth-shattering, and everything was different. The path that the Lord has led me down since that day, it didn't change overnight. I didn't go from, to dressing all in white and being this perfect, church-going Christian girl and prim and proper. It was a process, because he just takes you dirty and he cleans you up. That's just that path that you walk. Then it's like, people think when you become a Christian, all of a sudden you stop sinning and your life is perfect, and then you're able to go around and tell people how to live theirs. And it's not that at all. It's, you take all that sin and all that dirt and all that junk, and you give it to Jesus, and you just ask him to take it from you, and slowly but surely he peels off all that dirt, all that filth that you packed on, you spent your life covering yourself with, and he just washes it away. And I finally realized that my body and intimacy and things like that were things that weren't just to be given away, that God had saw purity in a way that the world does not see purity. He values it, and he gives it back to you. I figured there was some things God would accept and that he could, he forgave some sins, but there was other sins that he was real strict with and real firm on, and that they were things that I had to hide from him. But he took those too, and he really does wash us clean. I say that for just really for women that feeling like there's no coming back from a certain lifestyle, or that you've gone too far and just giving yourself away to just men or to just the world or whatever it is. And the truth is that he can restore that feeling of really being innocent and pure before him.